and welcome to Felix's Space Time. In today's video, we have an interview with Declan from Flight Club. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Thank you so much for coming on here for an interview. Can you tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Declan, and I made a web application called Flight Club, which tries to simulate rocket launches. I made it about 6 years ago, I think. And about 2 years ago, I started working on it full time. I moved to Mexico and started working on it full time because the small income that I get from Patreon is enough to pay my rent here. So yeah, I'm just trying to constantly simulate whatever cool, weird things are happening in space flight at any particular time. So it started off with, Falcon 9 landings when everyone was trying to imagine what a boost back burn would look like before one ever happened. Actually, that was the reason I made it in the first place. I wanted to see what it would look like. And then, people would have questions like, oh, I wonder what the aerodynamic pressure is when it's doing re-entry, or I wonder what the highest acceleration is when it's doing re-entry, or for Rocket Lab's Electron, oh, I wonder what the highest acceleration is for that. So I just try and simulate those things and answer those questions with physics instead of just guessing. And that's it. That's my job.
Can you tell me a bit more about how you created Flight Club?
Sure. So I studied theoretical physics in university, which sucked. I thought I would really enjoy it because I really liked maths and physics in school. But theoretical physics was different. But it was a good basis for kind of getting familiar with mechanics and kinematics and all the physics about how things move and stuff. But when I finished that, I did a master's in high performance computing where I learned to program, like to write code. So then I had the physics and the programming skills, and then SpaceX started trying to recover their boosters, and I was like, oh, I'll just try and do this as practice, I suppose. And I made like a really simple version of what is now Flight Club, where it was just the Earth was just a circle. It didn't spin. There was no atmosphere. You launch from the North Pole, like really just like basic. And I posted it on Reddit, on the SpaceX subreddit. And I said, oh, here's what I think a boost back burn will look like. And people were really positive about it. They were like, oh, I want to be able to play with this myself. Can you make this public? Can you make a web version of it? Yada, yada, yada. So I just kept working on it and kept growing it. I never intended for it to become what it is today. It was more just a hobby that I just kept working on in my spare time, and it kept growing.
Oh, okay. If someone was to join Flight Club and start using it, what would they expect to see, and how would they be able to use it?
Okay, so the majority of people actually who join it are photographers, which is not what you would expect. I would say probably about 70 to 80% of my users are photographers who want to photograph rocket launches. So one of the features of Flight Club is the photographer's toolkit, where you can log on and plot a rocket launch trajectory, and then you can say, oh, here's my location, and it'll put the camera there, and then you can say, here's the camera I have, here's the lens I have, here's all of the equipment that I have, and it'll change the screen size to the size that your camera can take. To the how do you say it? To the size photo that your camera would take, I guess is the way to say it. So it's just like a planning tool. So before a rocket launch ever happens, you can go in there and you can say, oh, if I stand here with this camera, will I be able to get the photo that I want? Or if I want to get a really close-up photo of stage separation, where is it going to be? Like at what compass direction and how high up do I have to be looking to get there? So before anything ever happens, you can just go in there and plan it and have everything ready to go before the rocket ever leaves the launch pad.
Oh, okay. Can you tell me a bit more about what you do in your spare time as a self-taught software engineer?
Yeah, so not much actually. I do this as employment, as like my paid job, and then once 5 o'clock comes around, I don't code that much anymore. This used to be the hobby. This used to be the side project when I had full-time employment back in Ireland. But since I moved here and this became the full-time employment, I haven't done any other side projects since then. Every idea that I have, every new technology that I want to work on, every new thing that I want to learn, I find a way to incorporate it into Flight Club. Because I find that now that I have so many users and so many people who depend on it, it's a bit more pressure to get things right, which I find makes me work a bit better. If I was making it and nobody was going to see it, I would just do a crap job. But because it has to go right, it makes me just learn things better and more effectively, and I prefer doing it that way. So I've kind of just pushed everything into this one project.
Oh, okay. Can you tell me a bit more about what inspired you to create Flight Club?
I'm going to say 100% what SpaceX was doing with trying to recover Falcon 9. It was 100% that. I mean, yeah, like when I was really young, like when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut, as I think most kids do, or I don't know, maybe they don't, maybe it was just me. But I was super interested in space. Like my parents got me a telescope. I used to look at the planets at nighttime. I used to do all that kind of stuff. And then I just kind of lost interest over time. My interest kind of went away, and I knew there was like rocket launches and stuff happening, but it was so far away. It was like across the ocean. I was like, I don't really care about it that much. But then when I was in university and SpaceX started trying to recover rockets and do all that kind of stuff, it was like, oh, these are just really cool physics problems that I want to think about, and I want to try and replicate myself, So yeah, that was 100% the inspiration. And even now, I would say SpaceX are a large percentage of the reason that I keep doing it. Because there aren't that many other rocket launch companies or organizations that are doing anything beyond just launching, which it's an interesting problem, but it's one that I've written code and I've solved it. So it's kind of done. But SpaceX are still kind of churning out like new weird maneuvers that I can try and simulate. Like, for example, I don't know if you saw Tim Dodd's interview with Elon Musk that he released last week. Really, really cool. But Musk mentioned in that interview the way they're going to try and separate the Starship system, not by using any kind of pusher or any kind of thrusters or anything, literally just by inducing a spin in the vehicle and have the centrifugal force just push the stages apart as they spin. I was like, damn, that's cool. So like this week I'm trying to simulate that and code in like the conservation of angular momentum and all these kind of things that I didn't have before. And it keeps me having to do new things all the time. So it keeps it interesting. Oh. And nobody else is really doing that. Rocket Lab is doing some cool things, but in general, it's mostly SpaceX keeping it interesting.
All right, okay. Can you tell me what first got you interested in space?
As I said, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I was really interested in seeing the planets through my telescope and that kind of stuff. But that was more in like, yeah, I think that was when I was interested in space. I think now I'm more interested in the engineering side of it, not so much in space itself. I would love to go to space. That would be class. That would be awesome. Maybe just to the space station or to the moon. I don't know if I'd go to Mars. It's a bit far. It's a bit long time.
Yeah.
I think like I mean, obviously I've never been, so I'm just thinking out loud here. But I imagine once Earth disappears from your view on the way to Mars, I feel like it would get a bit boring. I don't know if you get bored of being in zero gravity. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe it's amazing and you never get bored of it. But I just feel like that's a long time. 6 months to get there, 6 months to get back. But if you're on the space station, if you're on the moon, you see the Earth every day, and it's cool. Yeah. So So yeah, now I'm definitely more interested in like the engineering and the physics side of things as opposed to just space in general, you know.
All right, okay. What's your plans for the future?
I'm going to move back home soon, I think. The plan was to move back home to Ireland this year in March, just gone. But then that plan was kind of dependent on coronavirus getting better and things opening up and it actually being fun to go back there. And that didn't happen. So we delayed for another year and maybe next spring we'll head back. And the plan was always to just work on Flight Club as much as possible here and try and get the income high enough that when I go back to Ireland, which is more expensive than Mexico, obviously, I would have enough money to be able to do that full time there. And if not, well, then I'll have to put it away and go back to, you know, real people jobs, which I don't want to do, would suck, but
All right.
we'll see what happens.
That's all the questions I've got for you today. Thank you so much for coming on here. You've had some brilliant answers to my questions.
Thanks, Felix. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Do you have any questions for me at all?
Who else have you got lined up for future interviews? Or can you answer that? Is that a secret?
I can tell you someone. I've got someone from the Washington Post. You might know them, Christian Davenport.
Davenport. Ah, cool. Very cool.
I've got that.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thanks so much for coming on here then.
Thanks, Felix. Have a nice day. See you.
Watching. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.